Deputy Simon Harris sense on the need for the provision of hospice facilities in County Wicklow and on the current situation in relation to plans for same. 4 minutes, Deputy.
Thank you, Cahirlach, and thank you very much for providing me with the time to raise in the Dáil today the need for the provision of a hospice in County Wicklow and to seek an update on where plans for such a provision are currently at within the Department of Health and the HSE. And I thank Minister Lynch for her attendance here for this topical debate. Minister, the people of County Wicklow, relative to other parts of the country, have been poorly served by the level of palliative care available. In counties such as Limerick, Clare, Tipperary, Donegal and Sligo, the health spend on specialist palliative care services in 2011 was roughly €30 per head of population. In my county of Wicklow, that figure is a paltry €3. Currently, Wicklow does not have the resources to provide a 7-day-a-week service and cannot provide a weekend on-call service. Whilst the standard of care provided by home care teams of nurses is exceptional and very much appreciated by families in need of such a service, we have experienced weeks in Wicklow where services have been suspended in parts of the county due to staff leave and due to vacant nursing posts. Minister, despite all of this, an amazing group of dedicated, committed people have come together in Wicklow and they've set up what's known as the Wicklow Hospice Foundation. They've worked literally day and night, and to date they have raised in excess of €2.5 million to provide a hospice in Wicklow. They've even obtained a site for the hospice in Maharamore, which was donated by the nuns there very kindly. They now expect to be able to meet all the capital costs of building a hospice through their fundraising. And this, I think it's fair to say, is really an incredible achievement, particularly in the current economic climate, and makes me very proud to represent such a community in this House. But what I need to know today, and what the people in the Wicklow Hospice Foundation and the residents of County Wicklow need to know, is where is the provision of this hospice currently in the view of the HSE and the Department of Health? And crucially, what consideration has been given to the possible funding streams to staff and equip and maintain such a Wicklow hospice? If the community can build the hospice and have raised all that voluntarily, if the community have found the site for the hospice, where can the Department of Health and the HSE meet the community in helping? And this is where I really want to emphasise a few points, Minister, and seek some answers. In 2009, the HSE carried out a major consultation process on palliative care and produced a 5-year implementation plan. That plan came up with a list, and that list was based on population, need and clinical opinion of where these hospice facilities should be built. Obviously, we can't build a hospice facility in every town, but County Wicklow was included as a location. So that need has already been recognised by the HSE as far back as 2009. Can you inform me in the House today where the implementation of that 5-year plan is currently at? The Government's health document, which has just been published, Future Health, has a strong commitment to develop potential funding channels for palliative care. Can the Minister elaborate on this, and will this funding mechanism be based on the money follows the patient model, which is enshrined heavily in the programme for government and which I know both our political parties campaigned on in the general election? The provision of a Wicklow hospice is clearly the right thing to do, morally and from a societal point of view. But not only, Minister, is it right in those circumstances, it's also right from an economic point of view. We know, and you know very well, that the cost of acute hospital care is far more than the cost of palliative and community care. And can you address that point? The provision of a Wicklow hospice is a perfect example, in my view, of a partnership approach to the delivery of important community health service. The community has played a leadership role. There's huge buy-in and pride in this project. And residents in County Wicklow have literally put their money where their mouth is and raised more than €2 million. The nuns in the county played their part and contributed to a site, and that site has been approved as suitable by the HSE. We now really need to advance this, and to advance that we need the support of the HSE. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, to respond. 4 minutes.
I would like to thank the Deputy for raising the issue. It provides me with an opportunity to outline the position of the House in the matter. As someone that comes from a city that has always been extremely well served in relation to palliative care, I understand the value of such a service. Our policy is to continue to develop and improve palliative care health services in all regions of the country, thus meeting the objective of providing modern, high-quality palliative and end-of-life care services for those that need them. The development of such services is informed by various sources, including, for example, as the Deputy has already mentioned, the report of the National Advisory Committee on Palliative Care 2001, the ongoing wider reforms for the health service generally and service priorities and resources availability generally, as indicated in the agreed HSE annual service plan. The Deputy will appreciate, therefore, that the Executive has operational responsibilities for the delivery of health and social services, including considering in the first instance proposals relating to developing hospice facilities in Wicklow. Despite existing resource pressures overall on the health care system, the HSE National Service Plan for 2012 indicated funding of some 78 million for palliative care. Approximately 75 to 80% of this is being provided to the main voluntary organisations. Palliative care is also additionally funded through both acute and community services. The HSE Service Plan for 2012 specifically identifies the following deliverable outputs which are of relevance to the Wicklow area: development of a national standardised admission, discharge and referral criteria which will improve uniformity of care; development of a systematic process of assessment of need which will result in improved care plans; development of a benchmark which will ensure improvements from referral to first point of contact; development of integrated care pathways to improve access; development of guidelines and pathways to improve out-of-hours services; production of readily available information on palliative care and bereavement services which will be provided to individuals and organisations to enable them to better access local services. The HSE Palliative Care Services 5-year medium-term development framework 2009-2013 identified the need for an inpatient hospice unit for Wicklow, together with associated staffing and revenue. The HSE is keenly aware that the current level of service available is less than optimal. The local Wicklow Hospice Foundation has been engaged in extensive fundraising for capital to build a hospice. However, in order to staff and operate such a service, it would be necessary to secure substantial revenue funding and staff. The Deputy is aware of the budgetary pressures currently facing this Government and the HSE, and all new developments have to be considered against the current budgetary and fiscal constraints. The Executive has also to take account of other palliative care issues, such as capital projects approved in the national framework for all areas which face similar service and resource pressures. Nonetheless, the Executive is continuing to engage with the Hospice to see if it is possible to address funding issues there in the context of any flexibility for this from 2013 onwards. In the circumstances, the Department and the HSE will continue to keep the matter under review.
For the response. Really, for me and for the people of Wicklow, this is an issue of equity. This is, as I pointed out in my opening remarks, €3 per head of population being spent on palliative care in Wicklow, €30 per head of population being spent in counties like Donegal, Sligo and Limerick. We don't begrudge the people of Donegal, Sligo and Limerick, but there has to be an issue of equity. And we've seen that lack of equity when services in my part of County Wicklow, in North County Wicklow, were suspended and palliative care services could not be provided during the summer due to staff leave. And we had a situation where interviews were carried out to fill such vacant nursing posts, and the HSE then did not go ahead and fill those posts. I'm very much aware, Minister, of the current budgetary difficulties, but I do think it's important that we do look at the issue of equity, and I would be very grateful if you could bring back to the HSE my concerns in relation to those nursing posts. I think in the first instance, if that could be looked at, that would be very important. The next point I just want to touch on is the issue of funding, because again, you know, and I know it's a key commitment of yours and the Minister for Health, is to move to a money follows the patient model. If we're really serious about moving to a money follows the patient model, money should actually be leaving some of our hospitals with the patient and going to the hospice. And let me give you a statistic. You have a situation where 6% of patients in Limerick who were within hospice home care programmes, if you like, died in hospital in 2011. 40% of patients in receipt of Wicklow hospice home care died in hospitals in 2011. We know that it's more expensive to look after patients in hospitals than hospices. So if we actually introduce the money follows the patient model, surely we should be able to take some of those financial resources should move with the patient from acute hospitals and into a hospice. And I suppose the other point I just would like to make is in relation to, is there a list? And I suppose this is always the question we get asked in politics. Where is the next hospice going to be built, and where does Wicklow come within that ranking? And if you could take that back to the HSE, I'd be very grateful. Thank you, Minister.
Very brief. Of course, in terms of development of service and delivery of service, there's always an issue of equity. That's accepted, and I think the stark figures of 6% in Limerick and 40% in Wicklow, when in fact all of the research tells us that in relation to end of life, where we all wish to end our lives, would be in our own communities, in our own homes. Whether or not there's a list, I'm not certain, Deputy, but I will in fact convey your request, and if that information is available, I will ensure you have it.